Okay, well then we have 5 task force members. So Terry, Laurie, Cynthia, Carl, and Elise, and Parashar as the liaison to the FinCom. So I'll call the meeting to order. And our first order of business is to approve the minutes of April 28th, which we will do next time, along with the minutes of today. You've received a couple of emails from me, and I apologize for cluttering your inbox, but I received, as the chair of this committee, emails from that are sent to all the chairs. There's one about the middle school vote on May 6th, I think, and links to all of the complete information about that. And there is an email regarding a warrant article 31. So just to be sure that those things are on your radar screen. So I was asked to send them to my my committee members. So I felt totally foolish sending these 2 emails to all of you because, of course, you probably wrote this stuff. So anyway, that's what that is. And I thank you all for your contributions to this report draft. I assembled it into a maybe clumsy working draft, and then just a few minutes ago sent you a version 1 of the working draft, which has a few modifications, and it has, importantly, Carl's piece about pressing issues that I put in the background section. So, so there are 2 announcements I'd like to make. One is just a reminder that our next meeting will be in 2 weeks, May 26th. And we have been asked to come to the select board with our report on Monday, June 7th. And I think that will be a 4 o'clock show.
Yes.
My assumption, Terry, is that it will be a virtual meeting.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So that is our drop dead deadline. We'd like to have the report in, very complete order. A final draft would be maybe we will call our presentation a final draft in case there are select board comments that we'd like to incorporate in the final draft. And then we'll publish it. So that would be my suggestion. I'd like to hear from the rest of you, whether you think that's a decent strategy or whether we should adjust that.
So at least just so you know, Jared and I are in bargaining that afternoon, the 7th.
That sounds like a better offer.
I enjoy my time with teachers, but not necessarily at the bargaining table.
Yeah.
So I don't, unless something really different than I expect happens in May and we settle more quickly, I doubt we're going to be available.
Okay. So from my standpoint, presenting to the select board is a bit of a formality just to transmit the report and be prepared to answer any questions. So if all members of the committee wanted to attend, that would be fabulous. And I'm sure the select board would be terrific, but would be happy about that. But it's certainly not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that does raise a question. The recommendations in our conversations have been about both the town and the schools modifying their approach. The recommendations specifically recommend that the school committee should do some stuff. Are we planning to, or should we plan on at least affording the school committee to the same notion of coming in, talking about a draft, seeing if they've got any thoughts before we send something off that's final?
Well, it's a wonderful idea. I've been focused on the presentation to the select board because they are the body that charged this task force. And ultimately, we're responsible to them. But I do think that your recommendation, Parashar, is a good one. So Cynthia and Laurie, what's your view of that?
Cynthia, what do you think?
Well, our meetings, like I'm sure the select board, are jam-packed. And we have, what, 3 left, Lori? Or we have 1 next week,
We have one next week and some of that'll just be Concord.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, I think it would be appreciated. And the goal would be just to get some general feedback on it.
Yeah, general feedback.
Yeah.
Heads up, everybody's busy. I can't imagine, with all due respect, the school committee's focused on what we're doing.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
So,
Cynthia updates them occasionally, but I think you're right, before anything's packaged up.
Just a half hour or whatever, it's just courtesy, I think.
you haven't been to many of our meetings, I don't think. I'm just saying our half hour or whatever turns into an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I would propose, because this is why I'm trying to get into I would propose, if you feel comfortable, sending some kind of a draft
Mhm.
before Friday of this week. So
Okay.
so that people have a time to look it over. Worst case scenario, maybe Monday, but
So do you think they would like to see the entire report draft, or do you think they would like to see a synopsis?
I think a synopsis would be good. We don't need all of the appendices and that kind of a thing. The meat, however you view it, would be helpful. And then I would say a quick slide presentation, no more than 10 minutes. Is that possible?
From my standpoint, if a slide presentation is longer than 10 minutes, it's useless. So
I'm going to take that and put it on our.
well, the thing is, if someone's very interested in the topic, of course, they can sit through 40 slides.
Mhm.
But really, I feel like for, a formal committee that has lots of responsibility, it needs to be brief. And
Right.
if the committee has interests, then of course, be prepared to follow up and answer whatever questions come.
Great, that sounds great. So yeah, I think people understand the basics of what, the select board is and what we would, our charges and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So you'd like a synopsis before Friday, and then the question is, do you want to go ahead and schedule the meeting, or shall we wait for an invitation to come to the school
I'm
committee?
emailing the chairs right now. So
Okay,
let me
thank you.
confirm that Tuesday, the 18th is a good option. I suspect it is because we just added the meeting, so it isn't full yet.
Okay.
And we'll,
And what time of day is that meeting?
so we meet at 5, and I think this would probably be a 6 o'clock after we get out of executive session.
Okay, so on Tuesday, the 18th, I have a commitment that evening. I don't know what time it is yet. So if it were 6 to 6:30, I think that probably would work for me. Otherwise, I'll be looking for
Perfect.
someone else to make that presentation.
And
think we can
Stephen's
make it
doing this, maybe he can do it.
Sorry. Hi, Steve.
I'm sorry, you're muted. You're muted.
Nice try.
With Cynthia and Jared and I there, if none of you can attend, I think that's okay. If there's
Yeah.
slides all ready to go, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So at least just we will take care of it.
yeah, so you and I can just communicate about this and then we'll get it tuned up.
What meeting
for-
is this? I'm sorry. Terry can vouch for me. I was tied up and so could
Right, I
Carl.
already did.
School committee, so you can not worry about it. We got it.
So Parashar had the suggestion that perhaps before we take our report to the select board, we should give the school committee a preview of it, since some of our recommendations will involve the school committee. So that would happen on Tuesday, the 18th. So clearly it will be a synopsis of our work, and in a draft form. I would hope to have a final draft in 2 weeks on May 26th, so that we would all have a week to read it, edit it, comment on it, whatever. And then we could finalize it before we go to the select board on June 7th.
Right, Elise, I would ask that, whatever that Thursday is before June 7th, that it go to the select board by then, so they can read it over the weekend. It could be in the packet.
June 3rd mailing to the select board.
No, it can just go to Jeremy even, and he
Okay,
in the packet. But I just find that we're all a lot more prepared if things are in the packet than come at us.
absolutely. Okay, yeah, great.
What's the
Um,
date, Terry?
The Thursday, I have to check with Stephen, but I think it's that we would need it from you the Thursday before June 7th.
Right, for the packet, Friday is really.
Friday morning.
Friday by midday is usually pretty sufficient.
Yeah,
Jeremy works late on Fridays, whether he wants to or not.
okay.
Okay, all right, good. So those are our milestones. So in addition to just taking a look at the report today, I mostly would like, I don't think it's effective to try to edit by committee.
Right.
So, but I do think it is effective to, confirm the components of the report by committee. And so I'd like to do that today and identify any pieces that we think are missing or new ideas for including other material, and be certain that we've got it kind of in the right order, et cetera. And we've identified what should be in appendices and what should be in the body of the report and that sort of thing. And we do have an outstanding question of considering case study examples. And so let's talk about that first. Do we have the bandwidth or ability to develop case studies, or shall we consider that an idea for another time?
Case studies before we go to the select board, is that?
Mhm.
I'm trying to, the different towns that we looked at, is that what you mean?
No, if we wanted to take a case study
Oh.
from a very large project in Concord and run it through our process, our recommended process, would that be a useful addition to the report? Or not so much, because any examples that we would have would be ancient history.
If we could do a case study, why would we could just use a hypothetical example? Because one of the challenges maybe with doing something that's historical is it ancient history? Does it dredge up coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff? I don't know.
What would be the purpose of doing a case study?
Just to test drive the enhanced process.
Test drive the enhanced process.
I have an idea. And as you know, I frequently have ideas of varying degrees of goodness. Usually not very, but I'm gonna throw this one at all of you anyway. Because I know I mentioned the school committee presentation, and it's a very, very busy time of year because of town meeting and other things for boards and committees. And so I hate to even almost suggest this, or maybe if we could push, maybe affect the timeline. But what about presenting our findings at a joint committee, at a joint meeting like we're talking about, and have that be the trial? Have a joint select board school committee meeting, and then we would present the findings. And I think even, I did a prioritization of tier 3, or we didn't call them tier 3 projects in the context of the thing, but like a year and a half ago, I could certainly revisit that list with Lori, and we could certainly jointly present, like, here's what we have on the books that we think is coming in the near, for the next round of tier 3 projects. And we've looked at the order, here's what we agree is the priorities for the next sequence. And then present the thing in a joint meeting, because that's really what it would look like.
Yep.
I just know that trying to get that in before June 7th would be, I think, probably impossible.
Mhm.
And I like that, but as you said, but the timing would also be off and not conform to what we're recommending, right?
It would be, but I think that since we're just, because they may not accept the report and then the timing we're recommending is immaterial anyway, so. It just,
So would
I
it
mean,
confuse
yeah, I mean, I think if this was a different time of year, it would be easier, it would be an easier sell, for sure.
So
So,
are you thinking, Lisa, written hypothetical in the report as an appendix? Is that what you were kind of thinking?
no,
What do you
well, when we talked about case studies before, we thought about using a particular project as an example and writing it up as if it were, documented case study and including it in the report. But Stephen's recommendation is an actual test drive. It would be, but let's look at this and actually use new current information as opposed to historic information, which is a much better use of everybody's time, I think. If we wanted to do that, we could include that notion in the report and schedule a convenient date for that to occur.
But it feels like we'd be short changing the rest of the steps that we're recommending,
Mhm.
right? Because it's almost like you've missed all the public input and all that kind of stuff. And then you're coming to the end. I guess it would, in my mind, it would just serve to confuse people as you've got the written word on the page, and then you're doing a trial run that takes you almost to the end of, it's probably the second or third step, and you're doing it before time. It would just seem, I think, to confuse people and take away
I
from the
agree.
clarity.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a really busy time of year. I'm not sure how we could get it done before June, before town meeting really. And in the rush, I think, well, we might not get a lot of public participation or even be able to find a mutually good date for the two boards. And then we might rush and create confusion. It's too bad it's this time of year. One other idea I have is that the two case studies that we were talking about were the middle school and some kind of small town project that had phases, like
Row or something, yeah.
Giroux was our,
right, Giroux. So what I'm thinking is that in the slides that we could just say, that part where we have that thing about the definition of a large project is 5 million, or any project that's going to be over 5 million over several phases. We could just say, for example, if we had had this process in place, years ago, when Giroux came up, we would have probably marked it as a phase project because it might go over the 5 million. And then in another part of our report, we could say, for example, this is how the middle school building project would have come on and would have gone through, we could just sort of, instead of having to do tons and tons of work now when it's the end and we're all super busy with town meeting, we could just add these two examples in our talk
in a description, yeah.
very briefly.
I actually, well, I don't know. I feel like to do a case study, right? I know instinctive, I guess I just felt like the reason why I made the suggestion is to do a case study right would almost take more effort than just do the joint meeting and point back to the steps we've been through, public forum, kind of pointing back at the bench at the things that we've already done and say, this is what an example of what that step in our process could look like. And it doesn't have to be one for one, I didn't think, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I was actually, other than scheduling, which would be the most difficult part of what I suggested, I think everything else is already pretty much using materials we already have. versus kind of creating documentation of, you know, a hypothetical, but
Mhm.
I'm fine either way. I think either way would be helpful in just different ways.
Well, I
Okay, so I'm getting the sense that the task force thinks that we should not divert to develop a case study at this point and should just focus on the recommendations, being clear about that and having these early presentations to the school committee and the select board, and then using any projects that we might consider as case studies just as descriptions within the body of the report. Is that fairly capture the consensus?
I think you're doing a real case study. I mean, we're talking about a multi-year process. And to try to do a case study, it just, I think it's a very large amount of information and long time you'd have to cover. It's also easy, it's easier to do a case study of something that's, and typically that's the way they are, something that's happened in the past, you know, some project, and you can go through the whole thing. But this is kind of, I don't know, it would be a modeling thing, yeah.
Okay, great. So I've gotten several comments from folks about things that they'd like to see in the report. I think do you think it's worth sharing my screen and looking at this report together? Do you want to look at it?
Mhm.
Separately?
I know that I haven't contributed my sections yet.
Okay,
And so, and to be honest with you, I was looking through my notes to find out what did I say I was supposed to do, and I don't know. I know I see the template, like the intake form, and I have been working on that, and I could share my screen on what I've got, like the criteria and things like that. But I know there's probably some narrative that I'm responsible for, and I just can't remember. And then when I read the document sent out, it wasn't even clear to me from that. Like maybe that would jog my memory.
yeah, I have no idea what you're responsible for, so.
Everything.
Yeah,
Or nothing, Carl.
I thought it was the current process between you and
Yes.
Lori and Jared. You guys and Carrie, we're going to describe the current processes that you're using for type 1 and type 2.
I agree. That's how I remember it. And
Yeah.
you see that section not in this current draft yet. So I see that we're referring to tier 3 a bunch of times, but nowhere in at least the draft I saw, which was yesterday. So I don't have the most current draft, but we never described, well, what is tier 1, 2, and 3? So that kind of stuff is.
Yeah.
okay, let's see if I got it together here. Not really. Come on, pressing issues, where are you? Sorry, you have to look at my messy.
I'm actually gonna step away for just 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Where is that picture taken, Elise?
Oh, pond,
Oh.
right?
Gull Pond. Yeah, Carl knows, right? Sunset, probably about a year, well, it was a year ago, March, I think, probably right when COVID started, so.
Is that Wellfleet?
That's Wellfleet. So can you
Wow.
see this report now or just a
Yes.
photograph? Okay. Okay, okay. Yeah,
Can you make it a little larger, just the document
I
itself?
can. I certainly can. Thank you. Is that too big? Let's
No,
see.
that's good. Thank
Is
you.
that good? Okay. All right. So I just sent this again, Terry. So let's think first about kind of the organization. So executive summary, a description of the capital planning task force, the members, the background, the process, our approach, and then the options we considered.
Oh,
And
about that. Where is the charge? Is that part of the,
well, the charge actually I anticipated would be in the appendix.
right, I understand that, but back, where do we refer to the charge when
We
we,
refer to it in the, well, let's just go to the content then here. So
Sorry.
this is the Now, so I put Carl's pressing issues piece in background here. So
Okay,
then
I
the,
see.
sorry,
Sorry.
then the
Go ahead.
process is, this is from a slide, so it needs more prose. But it mentions the charge here. And so I think this is where we would make a full description of the charge and refer to the appendix to read the charge. And, you know, for the charge to be specific about what this task force was charged with doing. Then there's a little bit of background in here or process about time frame, number of meetings we've had, et cetera, et cetera. And then this purpose here is from the charge as well. And then this is the description. Terry, you may have written this, or you and Parashar may have collaborated on this. This
Yes.
is the a description of the task force approach. There may be some redundancy here.
Well, what's missing in this task force approach paragraph, the two paragraphs, I wrote one and Parashar wrote the other. My assignment was to write kind of the second paragraph about how we came to consensus on the standing committee versus the enhanced process. But if you want a section on the whole approach, and maybe you have this somewhere else, but there were some other decisions that we made, like whether to include land purchases as well as buildings, the size of $5 million, that we were going to use criteria. I don't know. There were all these decisions that we made along the way. And then we kind of got stuck on this last decision, and that's what this is about. But all those easier decisions we made initially, I'm not sure where they are in the report. They're probably in here somewhere, but I don't know.
They're probably not, because I didn't address those, what I'll call nitty gritty, if you will, decisions that were made. And so maybe up top where you had the task force approach, and right below that, like maybe there's a third paragraph or maybe into the second paragraph, we do what Terry suggested. Because it sounds like there was the size issue. What other ones did you rattle off, Terry? Some of these decisions were made before I even got here.
Yeah, I don't even remember them all. I think we're gonna have to.
Something about the size, the you know, the very large, all that, would that really?
Oh, the enterprise funds, I think. Enterprise
Recommendation?
funds. Right?
Okay, so how about I just add this as a reminder that we need to add a paragraph. We add.
Right, and that's not the place it would go. It would go before, no, go down a little bit. Right after the word approach. It would be the first, so it would say the capital planning task force met this many times, and then it would then add description of all these decisions we made. Okay, and then after much discussion and debate,
Yeah,
gonna come up with, yeah,
yeah, no, that's good.
right there, perfect.
Okay, good. So we wanted to add something about tier 1 and tier 2 projects. So let's just, sorry to be scrolling up and down here, but if we go back to the table of contents, I added today this line, current capital planning process. And it seems to me that that's not written, but that's where the tier 1 and tier 2 descriptors could go.
Lisa, I'm wondering whether it should go first, meaning before the recommendations, so that there's a little bit of context, there's a foundation on which we built the recommendations. And whether it goes, whether it's a separate section or under Roman numeral 2, but because I think we took all that into account when we were debating the pros and cons.
Yep. So what do people think? Should it be a separate section or should it live here?
I think
as
the part
context?
about the tier, our recommendation is that the capital planning process that we're talking about cover tier 3 projects.
Right.
I think in the introduction, maybe the spot for that, because I think if you say the charge, background, maybe even in background, because I think if you bury it, if you nest it into the body of the report that talks about our deliberations and process, I think people may get confused with the fact that it wasn't really a part of our deliberation and process. It's really part of the background is telling people when they say there's no process, which Parashar knows drives me right off the edge. There is an existing process for tier 1 and tier 2 projects, and here it is.
Right. So it should say existing. Yep, perfect. Well, we don't even need the word introduction.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
that's good. Now you've got the foundation, I think, for the rest of the context.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, can you go back to the higher level for just a minute? I'm sorry, because I'd like to, so then we've got our recommendations. And then what's Roman numeral 4? Oh, that's it then. Okay, the appendices. Perfect.
What do you think? Too short?
Nope.
No, the shorter the better.
Less is more.
And I think Parashar and Elise did a fantastic job putting this together. This is like really a great draft.
Okay, so the red lines are going to be what we still have to write. All right. So when we get down to the options, so we'll put here the background talks about the pressing issues, then we'll have the existing process, and then we'll have the task force process and our approach. And then this section is a synopsis of the options that we considered. And we are using this table as a way of capturing that.
The only thing I'm thinking about this table is there's 4 options. And the one that we're recommending is the shortest one. And so I know there's a lot more considerations why we chose it. And maybe we should put in a few more bullets in that one.
Well, I think we should look at this table, and there's another table when we that has the 3 options in it. And because most of our deliberation was centered around the 3 options. So I like using the table as long as we can get it in a good legible format in the report. But there may be a later table that was, I think the later table probably combined the advisory standing committee.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then this is the overall recommendation. So let's go back up here. So this is the way I thought about it, and you can
So you've got to
help
think
me
about
be
the very
rational
large
about
project
this.
in there already.
So in this recommended, I don't think we need this. This recommended process, I thought describe the overall recommendations, talk about responsibility and authority, because when we look at the best practices from other cities and towns, we found that most of those towns that have standing capital planning committees are required to by their charge. And Concord does not have that requirement.
The other distinction between those that I stand out is that they were responsible for all capital projects, not just the large ones.
Exactly,
The scope was much wider too.
right. Okay. So I do think that that is an important, it's important to be included here, is describing the recommendations. And then we have a section about evaluating and prioritizing projects, sequencing debt, the timeline for the process, the criteria for the climate impacts, a paragraph about integrated decision-making between the town and schools. What we don't have yet written are this section about a transparent public process, which I think is key to our recommendations. And then we can consider having kind of a summary benefits, why this process, if you all think that's a good idea.
All the ones that are not in red have been written. And-
Have something in, yes, well, so, okay, so here's the overall recommendations. And then a section on responsibility and authority, the current capital planning process we just moved. And then there's a paragraph on evaluating and prioritizing projects. There's a paragraph on sequencing debt. This needs some work. Carrie and Jared provided a new template, and she sent me something, or sent all of us something just recently today about including a chart from the annual report or the FinCom report. So for me, I think this section needs some refinement, a little more information. And then this is the project criteria considering climate impacts. And then something about the annual timeline. And this is redundant. And then the integrated decision-making for towns and schools. So transparent public process, no text on that yet, no text on benefits, why this. And then just a sample list of what would be in the appendices. And I'd like to try to decide what else we want to go in the appendices. Or maybe this is enough.
I thought we were going to also include copies of the minutes or links to the minutes. And the benefit one is easy. It's a simple sentence, says benefits are obvious.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
Like your style, Parashar.
Just like,
Obvious, that's our recommendation.
yeah, I'm glad Parashar went first, because I was gonna say the transparent public process was written with transparent ink, and that's why you can't see it.
Invisible ink, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not transparent public process, it's transparent public process.
Okay, good. So what else should we include in the appendices in order to keep our report short?
Well, I think in the section of what we do now, I think in the appendix, there could be a table of the tier 1 and 2. That way people will see that it's different from tier 3.
So this is similar to the 2 slides that Jared
Right.
had we had slides for the schools and slides for the towns
Right,
that showed the timeline and that sort of thing.
right. And if we could go back up for a second.
Yep.
There was one section, that one, integrated decision-making. I'm not sure that that title, I'm not sure what it means, and I wrote part of this section and I'm not
But I-
sure the title has anything to do with this section.
So I titled it.
Okay,
This is my language.
all right. What do you mean by that?
So one of the important aspects of this recommendation, it seems to me, is that the towns and schools get together and they look at all of the, potential large projects
the link.
coming down the pike, and they, together in an integrated way, make a decision about the sequence or
But that's not what this paragraph, these two paragraphs are not talking about that. So I think that in this integrated decision-making that the town and schools together is crucial. That's one of the best benefits. But these two paragraphs, what they're supposed to be saying, Parashar wrote one and I wrote one.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
You're right.
different-
You're right. This is lessons learned. Wait a second.
Oh, no. So what this was is Terry, you had the germs for these paragraphs, but the idea was let's codify them. I think that's the language
Yes,
you used.
That's it. How
But
do we adopt it? How do we?
yeah, so I didn't like codification because that's a legal term.
Right,
I didn't want people to misinterpret it. And so I suggested integration.
right,
I added in the lessons learned aspect of it because the
right.
previous report 20 years ago also said adopt these things, but the town never acted on it back then. So
Right.
this is a reminder that for this to take effect, you actually have to act on it. Otherwise, history is going to repeat itself.
Well, maybe we could call it making it actionable. Or, we need a good title. I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. Or putting it into practice or something.
Yeah.
So can anybody see this document, or are you just seeing a white screen now?
White screen.
Wonder why that's happening.
Oh,
You might have to.
there we go.
There it
There we
is.
go.
Okay, so this is lessons learned and something else, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a bit of a lessons learned.
Oh, man.
Oh,
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
There's a couple of folks we don't really recognize here.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Oh, shoot. We've been hacked.
This is Jeremy doing his thing.
Okay.
What's this? Yeah, we've been hacked?
Yeah, I think we've gotten bombed here. That's exactly what's going on. Should we end this meeting right now?
Yeah, okay.
We can end it. We can get back on.
Where's Jeremy, actually?
He I saw him there.
He's here. We're probably both trying to stop participant sharing and remove these guys as we go, because I'm also a host.
Good.
I Googled some of the names and they were fictional characters.
Yeah, Clyde doesn't seem to be a,
There
there
we
we
go.
go.
There we go. Thank you.
Well,
Ready.
Never
Right, should we
experienced.
try again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so what Parashar and I are saying is instead of lessons learned, we think it's something like, making it actionable, or what was that other phrase you, Parashar? Putting it into practice.
Putting it into practice or putting recommendations into practice or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So integrated decision making then is we still need some text about that. Putting recommendations, well, so the transparent public process, I think, should move forward.
And then when you do that, I have a idea on the benefits and maybe let me know when you're done and because it's
Yeah,
gonna.
I'm good.
So if you go to the opening where I think Carl, you said Carl wrote up some issues, open issues or topics in the
Right.
background.
Mhm.
Perhaps a good way to close on it is by making sure that our recommendations will address those issues.
That's what I promised in the opening thing.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
I promised that we would do that.
Yeah, and so maybe we just sort of go back and say, hey, we believe these, right, implementing these recommendations, et cetera, will boom, 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 right? And that way it's half written already.
okay,
Great.
that sounds,
And I think the benefits should go before, the last section should be putting it into practice. And I don't think benefits should be, it's too important.
yes, there, Terry, do I understand that's what,
Yeah,
okay,
that's just, I just don't think benefits should be last.
fair enough. So what else would you say we are missing?
Can this is why you don't do this as a group release because of people like me. I guess it's the word benefits. I think well, to me, what I think would be meaningful for me to hear is instead of benefits, problems addressed. You know what I mean? I think the benefit is, because we had the here's what we heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're trying to say, we can still call it benefits, but I think what we're trying to say is we heard this. And so here's what we're proposing addresses this. And I think part of that is tied up in why we chose the enhanced process instead of a freestanding committee. And that section really is very specific in terms of here's what we kept hearing the overarching problems were, and here's how we believe the process benefits those issues.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's just the way I feel like that's what we're trying to articulate.
I agree.
I kind of was pressing issues based on going over, all the information we had, old meeting minutes, all sorts of stuff. But if we kind of need to tie something that we're recommending back to an issue, we could maybe add that to that front section, the pressing issues section, just so it's symmetrical.
Okay,
And maybe it's addressing concerns of the status quo, because that's really what it is, right? Addressing
Yeah,
concerns of the status quo.
could be, yeah.
okay.
Have we just created more work for ourselves?
I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of writing what we,
Okay.
Most of it's all there,
what we talked about and,
cut and paste.
yeah, and there's a piece in the background that we also need. This is just a note to me to find a place to put that. And it may not be in the background piece, Carl, it may be somewhere
Mhm.
else.
What are the long-range recommendations,
I
please?
think one of them was that there be capital planning.
That there be a 10-year capital plan.
Oh, I
Yes.
see.
Could just refer to that.
Yeah. Okay, so can we talk about the template for a minute? The debt sequencing. Did anybody have a chance to look at the material that Jared and Carrie sent?
Yeah, I mean, the graph and the
Yeah,
surface stuff,
yeah.
scary.
And so we have this template as, a sample tool. The other piece is also an interactive tool, is it not? And so I guess my question is that what we thought the citizens would use?
What are you referring to exactly? Which document? Did it come today or was it?
Yeah.
It came, I don't know when it
think
came. It came,
recently. Yeah.
Carrie sent something in about quarter two saying estimated impact on tax bills. Is that, she also
Okay.
sent something, I think yesterday as well. She said, she sent a couple of documents out, but the most recent one was almost like a multiplication table.
Okay, the reason
Here's
I'm
a graph,
asking you,
which is.
yeah, because of that other meeting, yeah, I don't know how many people have seen things quarter to
Yeah.
two, but I
Yeah,
have
there's
not.
also, okay, there's also a second tab that allows, like whatever you call it, like a dashboard. You can put information in and it returns a result for you.
A calculator. So
Yeah,
no, so
calculator.
there's a spreadsheet that has the debt service, it's a debt schedule. There's a debt protection schedule, and then she sent today basically a estimated impact of town meeting spending on your tax bill. That goes like when town meeting spends from 10,000 to 100 to $1 million, what that does to your assessed value, and then has a median average.
So
Yeah.
at least when I developed those, when I put those three placeholders in, the
Yep.
first placeholder was supposed to be that graph that you just opened up, for the graph you just opened up.
this one.
That one, because I
Yep.
think everybody said very clear visual representation. So that in my mind was figure one in the reference. I had actually forgotten about the calculator, but I think that's important to put into the body of the report also, is that we would recommend that the town develop, and in fact, maybe even acknowledge that Stephen and Carrie have already done something like that.
Yeah.
And they're going to put it up on the website or something.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, would our report have a link to this calculator?
Sure.
Would that be
Yeah.
possible to do? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so Parashar, then, so these graphs are holding,
Well, figure one up above was supposed to be, no, scroll down. Okay, no, right before sequencing the debt, keep going up a little bit higher. Okay, so the annual should include projection of future debt. That's figure one right there where it says placeholder
Yeah.
for graph.
okay,
That was supposed to be that graph that you just had. I couldn't find it.
okay. And so is it only the graphs that you want to see there?
Well, I thought the idea was the graph and then those two simple tables that Carrie had done, those three
Okay.
items.
Yeah,
Right.
all right,
The core of whatever gets put out.
okay. And then the second, and so then this,
Is number two.
this is figure two, and this is the correct image for figure two.
Yes, it was from Carrie's spreadsheet.
Yeah. Recommended table to show estimated tax increases attributed.
Yep, and then figure three is the one on debt service. Because Carrie had another one, table on the debt service.
This is the debt service, yeah,
Yep.
okay. And then there is, then the interactive piece is for the debt service also. Yes? This the tax impact projections?
That calculator, isn't that independent? Because that calculator is for the household, right?
Yeah, this is,
That was a calculator for the average, for the person individual.
that may be, yeah.
And that language, we should just build in a sentence or two that references that in the body of the report, which I'd forgotten about. We need to include that in there.
Yep.
The calculator, I mean, you can include it as an attachment, but it's a live thing. I just entered some data in it. It just gave me my annual tax bill.
Right. And we can link it to something, right, Stephen?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think the intent is to put it on our website. Really, I'm sure we'll create a tier 3 project website at some point in time. Probably when we have a tier 3 project going, but we can just load this calculator up and have it on there.
Yep, okay. So Stephen, you were saying at the beginning that you thought that there would be something you're working on to go into this report. Do we have it captured? Do we know where it is? How would you describe it?
Yeah, hang on one second. You want to stop screen sharing for a second? Yeah, I'll just share my screen for a minute. So I have the criteria here. Now we call these sustainability criteria, but we also had started off with general project criteria, and they're all kind of commingled. But you can see in the project criteria that there's a heavy focus on sustainability issues. There's sustainability goals generally, and then built environment, energy, mobility, natural resources, and then there's climate protections and greenhouse gases. So there's a heavy sustainability focus, but there also are safety, enhanced operations, things like that. So, and I went back and I intended to split the list up into general criteria and sustainability criteria, but there really wasn't enough of a dividing point to make it worth separating.
So we have a list of criteria in the body of the report, and so this would be a good example to include after the description of those criteria.
Well, I think this is our score sheet.
Okay.
So as we would evaluate projects, we would say, does the public safety complex enhance these sustainability goals? Yes or no? And you would maybe say yes, and then I shouldn't say struggle, but I gave the comments section some thought, like should it be comments, should it be a rank like 1 through 10, and I think we'll need to tease. I think that probably won't be settled until we actually have a project that we're evaluating. But I wanted to show that there's a form for scoring a project. And then did the tab switch? Oh no, that's different. Sorry, let me stop sharing here so everybody sees that. Where is this?
While he's looking for that, I think you have captured, all of those bullets in the body of the report. So what we were just looking at could be a really good thing for the appendix if we wanted it.
Yep.
I think the other thing that's missing that maybe Stephen is looking for right now is it might even be in the warrant or the capital plan, well, that's another one even. And then a list of what we're funding in the next 5 years for tier 1 and 2 from the town, from the school.
So when we said, Terry, good point. When we said in appendices, like the capital, the existing process, I was going to say, let's just put in the current 5-year plan for tier 1 and tier 2 as a sample.
Right. And then you just have to write a paragraph about it in the body about, we already have a capital plan. This is what we do.
Yep.
Appendix.
The current capital, the FY22 to FY27 5-year capital plan is attached as exhibit A or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And make it a link, is that what you think? Because you have to link it to the school and the town, right?
It's just the town. The capital plan that we usually use is just, it's one document because the school has like a $900,000 allocation for capital, and their projects are kind of rolled into the towns.
So it's in the same document then?
I believe so, yeah.
We have a separate document that outlines our 5-year vision of where that 900,000 is going to go. So you could link both if you want to.
That's
Let's
what
put
I
them both
thought.
in. Yep.
We're two separate ones.
Okay, so will
What
you
I'm
all,
sharing here is the intake form. And I'm still working at it because I'm going off of our existing model for land acquisition.
Mhm.
Because I want to make sure that if site, because of tier 3, I wanted to make sure we captured some level of site acquisition component, because usually that's a big deal. So this is the one, I hate this format and layout, but it's what I started with. And so I'm trying to, move it around and make it more of a working document for a tier 3 project. It's just very different than you would have for a tier 1 or 2. Like if you're buying a dump truck, it's a lot easier to create a form to fill that out than for a tier 3.
okay. So when will you send those to me to put into the report?
Soon, very
you.
soon.
Excellent. Good, that'd be great. So,
And I think we agreed we're going to include the one that Lori mentioned as well, right?
Yeah, we'll send our 5-year.
yeah, town and
Yes.
school, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I can do that today. Ours is
that's
ready.
great. Thanks. Good. All right. Anything else that people feel is missing? Or,
I'm curious, Lori and Stephen, do those 5-year plans always sit in the same place on the websites, or do they shift depending as the fiscal year changes and the budget documents for each fiscal year are placed in the appropriate location?
Well, I guess the 2 that I've been a part of are in, I think, the finance committee report.
So each year, the 5-year capital plan location itself changes. But it's always in FinCom report.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I just know that each year it is presented as a part of the town meeting warrant process. And so wherever those, and it may be if you go to the town meeting website, but I know that's all bundled together with our town meeting stuff, like the annual budget and some of the other things. I don't know, Laura, if you store yours on your website someplace different, but I think ours is good.
Yeah, it's always in the big budget book Jared puts out. That's certainly where it lives. And usually it's on the webpage under that fiscal year. So essentially it does stay in one place. It's all housed in it's in both the budget book and on the webpage, and he breaks it out. I'm on it now. He breaks it out under fiscal year, and I can send the link to Elise.
great, thank you.
But if you put the link in, it's going to be broken next year. That's the only thing I'm going to say.
That's where I was going.
Yes.
Yeah,
You mean the link will be broken?
Well,
Yeah.
so we put a link in, it would go to the 2022 memo,
Yeah,
capital.
yeah, okay.
So in other words, there's no website that says long-term capital plans and just a linking of them, which you can take different approaches on how it's organized.
I mean, we haven't taken anything off of this fiscal page since 2015, but eventually you would, and then it's a dead link. So I see both sides of how to do that. You could just put it in as
You could link to our
appendix,
budget.
maybe.
You could link to our budget information page.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm on right now. So it's Jared's static page. It's not a,
Actually, this is an important discussion because it gets to Stephen's point that we've been doing it every year, but then the citizens don't know how to find it. That's been really one of the biggest reasons that we've been doing our work.
So I suggest that we put a hard copy of these 5-year budgets in the appendix.
Yep.
And with a citation of where it is found,
Yeah,
that we just not drill down into, whatever, just say, this is where you can find it and this is what it looks like, instead of trying to do the links. I think it's, for our purposes, will be better.
Oh, so then let me just reiterate. I just went to the town website and I searched for capital plan.
You found it.
No, I didn't.
Well, I found it last night, but okay.
Oh, look, I
Right.
just did the.
I found the
Google-
schools too, but anyway.
Right, well, I just put in capital plan. I got 1 of 10 of 8,000 request.
oh, yeah.
our task force and some articles take up the large piece of it, right? Article 11, capital debt plan
Well, yeah.
is the one, right? But it's
So,
not so obvious that that's the plan.
well, two things. One, pro tip, if you want to search the town's website, use Google search, not the town search bar, because the Civic Plus search bar is terrible. I use Google to get the town website, and I'm on it all the time. So pro tip number one, and number two, in the narrative, we can certainly add, this information is presented annually as a part of town meeting and is,
Yeah.
contained in the school's budget book and the town's annual capital plan. Because the way it's done now, it is organized by year,
Right.
not necessarily by subject. And so we can certainly say where, for better or worse, we can just say where it lives today.
No, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, good. All right. So to recap, at the end of this meeting, I'm going to send version 2 of the working draft, which will show you all of the little edits that we made today. I'm going to write a synopsis for the school committee and put together a short slide deck and send it to Cynthia before Thursday. And you can do with it whatever you need to do with it, Cynthia, or let me know if you needed to edit it, or feel free to edit it or whatever. Cynthia's going to work on minutes from 2 weeks ago and today. And everyone who has a brainstorm about what they're working on is going to send that to me, the appendices, other components of the report, and that sort of thing. And then I'm going to encourage everybody to read through this working draft, add stuff, edit it. Please use track changes and send it back to me. And I will send you all a new draft next week. And we'll do the same thing again.
Elise, do you
Yes.
want to delegate out of a bunch of those red sections that need to be written? There's maybe 5 or 6 of them, and there may be one paragraph each or whatever. You want to just assign each one of us to write one of those paragraphs so you don't get stuck writing them all?
Well, I don't want to make the assignments, Terry. I'd prefer to have people say, I'll do that.
Yeah,
So existing capital planning process for tier 1 and 2, we've talked a lot about that. Stephen's on that, I think, with support from Laurie and Jared, because we want it to be both town and school. The responsibility and authority plus the scope of other capital planning task force. I'm happy to write that. I put together the best practices piece, so I'm happy to do that. Unless Cynthia, you're interested in responsibility and authority, do you want to write that, or you want to just edit what I write?
I'll edit.
Fair enough.
Okay.
No problem. All right. So this is, let's just say, Stephen and Laurie. All right. Transparent public process.
I'll take a stab at that.
Okay, Parashar. And the benefits we changed as the addressing issues. So sort of making the link back to how our process addresses the issues in the pressing issues.
I'll write that,
You want to write that, Terry?
sure. Unless Carl wants to. I'm happy
Okay.
to do it, Carl, but you can.
Yeah. If you have any, if you, again, I think the 2 sections should be symmetrical. So if you want to
Exactly.
kind of, if you need me to work with you on the first part of it, so that they,
Well, I'll write up a draft. I'll take your form and I'll send it to you to see what you think.
So it's always easier to edit than it is to to write it cold. So we'll be counting on everyone to use their best editing efforts here. So there are inconsistencies in this draft that I'm going to send because we edited it sort of on the fly. So anybody feeling shortchanged? Anybody's got a, oh, there's also the descriptions of other decisions that we made during the deliberations.
You know, I'll take a stab at it. I think one of your earlier PowerPoint slides from November, December had a
Yeah.
list. I can look it up and just write a sentence or two on each one. I won't go into a lot of whys, but at least quickly went over these.
Yeah, so I guess my goal in the next week would be to get a complete working draft that then we could refine in the second week. And then that will give us what I would want to call a final draft on in 2 weeks on the 26th. And then we would have 1 week to really refine it before it goes to the select board. So an iterative process, and so please don't be shy. If you feel that there are sections ought to be reorganized or whatever, just send me a track change and we'll make it happen. Okay. So Carlin, you've been faithful to attend our meetings. Do you have any public comment today?
I do, and it's actually for Parshar. Parshar, when you're doing your transparent public process section, you might consider, and I do recommend that you include in that your vision of the role that the finance committee will play in this process as part of the, if it's public participation. Looking at the draft that was presented today, I didn't see finance committee's role described at all. And this town relies quite heavily on the FinCom to act as the budget watchdog, especially for capital plans. So you may have touched on it, you may consider it, think about the role of the finance committee in this and the recommendation that this committee will have for FinCom's role. It may be unstated, I don't know. It may be an intentional avoidance. I don't know that either.
No.
But that was absent. So that was my observation.
It's
Thank
there. Just go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I know clearly that Carl and I debated this for quite a while, and Carl had some very specific things that he put in the second meeting. There are 3 meetings. The second one says Finance Committee, and it states very specifically what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, they do definitely wanted a role and it's appropriate that they have a role and that's in that, but maybe that needs to be a little bit clarified and fortified, yeah.
Well, I think if I may, that, you know, finance committees in Massachusetts get their role from, in some cases, state statute, in other cases, town charters. And I seem to have a flicker of recollection where we kind of talked about this some time ago and decided that, you know, it's not up to us to define the FinCom's role. Whatever comes out of this process, the finance committee reviews and makes a recommendation one way or the other to the town meeting, no matter what. And so I think we, months and months ago, kind of got away from defining the finance committee's role because that's already set and that's already a part of this, that's already baked into the overall capital process. If I recall that incorrectly, that, you know, that's likely, but I seem to think that we had that conversation.
So I think that that's right, but I think what I heard Carlin say is the transparent public process would surely include the finance committee. And so she would recommend that we be clear about that as we describe this. And I do think that we have consistently heard from the FinCom that they would benefit from a long-range capital plan, that their work would benefit from a long-range capital plan. So I think that we can enhance that, shine a brighter light on it. Carl.
And I would also,
Yeah, okay.
I think, so my opinion is the I don't consider the finance committee public, right? And so in my mind, I think one of the open issues, and I didn't get a chance to read, or Carl, you wrote up, but this notion of the FinCom would like a longer term plan, and there should be some role for the FinCom to at least provide input in the plan. Maybe
Mhm.
that belongs in the upfront issues.
Well, we
And
we
then I
have
think-
that in our process, but I think in the you know, the thing where you're writing where the issues are taken care of, that's where you say, this is where we've done this.
That's
we've,
exactly right.
Provided this role for the FinCom.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So
Yeah.
at the opening, and then where the issues are taken care of, because Carlin, in the steps, we actually have a specific call out for people to come to the FinCom, and the FinCom is going to focus on a few specific areas, the ones that Carl wrote up earlier. And so that's all in there.
Great. Very
Good,
helpful. Thank you.
That will build some confidence in this process going forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
think making it an example of providing transparency is important. Yeah.
Okay. Parting shots. Cynthia. Terry,
No,
Laurie,
What's up?
Stephen, Carl,
I think we're almost there.
Parashar.
Nope, I think if we can get this done by summertime, that would be good.
Be very good. Thank you all. Thank you for your robust participation today.
Motion to adjourn.
See you in 2 weeks. Oh, well, I guess we should vote on that. Is there a second? Parashar second? He can't second this.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yes,
second to
okay.
Stephen's motion?
Second.
Carl seconds, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Unanimous.
opposed? No, okay, yes, unanimous.
Very good.
Yeah.
Have a good afternoon.
Have a
So
good
long,
week.
everybody.
progress, a
Bye.
lot of progress. Thank you.